Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I am your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, this is going to be an amazing episode. If you're like me, where when you got out of the military, you didn't have a mission, you didn't have a purpose anymore, and you just felt lost. For me, that was the day that I attempted suicide. Thank God it didn't go through. But I know a lot of you that are out there are struggling today with trying to figure out who you are, what your mission is, and why God put you here. That's what we're going to be talking about with my friend Mike. So I just want to say, Mike, thank you so much for coming on. I've been waiting for so long to talk to you, and I'm so grateful that we actually get to hang out today.
No, I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to it.
Mission, when you're in the military, we're always taught mission, mission, mission.
Yep.
And when we get out of the military, a lot of us don't have any mission. So first, the question I want to ask you is, what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah. So resilience, resilience is the ability to bounce back right after you hit the wall. That's resilience. So if you think about a tennis ball and an egg, right? Tennis ball, even though it smacks against the pavement and it comes back into its same shape, right? Even though it's hitting resistance. That's resilience, is being able to go, wait a second. There's an amazing story about resilience, Robert Preston Taylor's story, where he was a chaplain, part of the Bataan Death March, and he went through some pretty adverse conditions. He was thrown into the hell pit, right? In the hot box, came out, and his job was to encourage the troops that were still there in the imprisoned camp with him. That's resilience, is no matter the circumstances that you face, that you're able to bounce back. In these times, though, when you look at it, Richard, you're going to have to develop anti-fragile resilience, right? That means you're going to bounce back, but it might not be the same shape. It's going to be different than what you originally started. If you look at the egg has no resilience, right? Very fragile, right? It hits resistance and it falls apart. That is really the opposite of being resilient. So in this 21st century, we've all had to learn to bounce back, but we're bouncing back differently than when we first started, right? That's anti-fragile resilience.
So. And I love that, as I'm starting to talk to more people like you and different doctors and psychologists, I'm believing in post-traumatic growth.
Yep, 100%.
Traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So talk to us. Well, I know you've done some amazing things in uniform. I think you're doing even better things out of uniform. But talk to us about you, a little bit about your story. Give us a quick down and dirty about your 7 years in the United States Navy, and talk to us about how you became the man you are today.
Yeah. So, third generation Navy. So it was just kind of in my blood. 1986, an amazing film came out called Top Gun. I was that kid in the theater, and no lie, I walked into that theater, and the moment that movie started, I knew exactly who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do, and who I was. Before that, I had no idea. I was like every other 16, 17-year-old punk kid that thought, I wanted to be something, but wasn't sure what. That movie changed my life. And I want to be a pilot. I want to be a naval aviator. That's who I want to be. I mean, I marched into that recruiter's office, Richard, no lie. Guy's sitting there in his pressed white uniform, chief, right? Didn't know what any of the ranks meant. I walked right into that opened up that glass door with the anchor on it. And I looked right at that guy and I said, man, I am Tom Cruise. I'm going to date Kelly McGillis and I'm going to fly your cool jets. And he said, great, you're in. And that started my naval career at that point, which was somewhat short-lived because in the Clinton administration, they began to downsize, if you recall that. I joined in 87, got out in 94. And, I struggled after that because the military was so good at assigning me mission, purpose, identity. Mission was, the plan of the day or commander's intent, right? Whatever our team was going to be working on that day, that was my plan. That was my mission. My purpose was to help save the world from bad people, right?
Okay, I have a question. I see that you wear glasses.
Yeah.
Did that prohibit you from flying jets when you?
No, I had perfect vision back when I was younger. But over the years, looking at different contracts and doing different things and being a reader, you can't see my bookcase back here, but this is only a portion of my books. I can't see small print anymore, so I could never fly today. But no, the Navy had different plans for me. They, instead of being a pilot, they said, no, we need you to be a personnel guy assigned to EOD, explosive ordnance. So I was assigned to the Mauna Kea, and we were an ammo auxiliary ship, and AKA a floating time bomb. So and when I got out, I just didn't know what to do, who I was.
Now I have a question, because I have a lot of friends that are EOD, and you guys are a little bit left of center. Like I was a tanker, and I love the mine plow. For some reason, I guess I'm just twisted. So, what was that like, and how was it? Because when you get out of the military, no matter how many years you put in, you can't just go put a resume out and say I was an EOD.
Yeah,
there's jobs out there. So, what was transitioning like from getting out at that point?
Yeah, well, and I was assigned to EOD, so I wasn't even EOD official, right? So I was like the secretary assigned to EOD, which, made me somewhat cool, but not really. But the teamwork, the camaraderie, as you know, Richard, in the military, whether you're Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, doesn't matter, right? That camaraderie that you develop with the people that you hang with is unique. When you look at who joins the military, those who have joined the military and get out of the military, we've all accomplished something that 93% of Americans have not, right? I mean, we're rare air. And so when you get out and you get into the civilian sector, and suddenly you're thrust into this whole community that doesn't even understand what it means to have somebody's back, even if you disagree with them, or what it means to have something bigger than yourself, right? A purpose bigger than yourself. I got thrown into that environment. Fortunately, I was in college, so I had, I was still under Navy orders when I was in college, so I still had that Navy discipline. But then when I got out, I speed dated through jobs. I had 14 jobs. I mean, I was like, no lie, speed dating through jobs. Richard, I mean,
one of my friends, his name is Sergeant Nick. He talks about, I've had him on the show, that, once you step off base, the military does not give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing, and pretty much you become a man or a woman on an island. And sometimes, if you're like me, you get left to your own devices, and then you're dead, and that's a scary place to be. So did you go through stuff like that when you got out?
I did. I started looking for things to fill that hole in my soul, right? Drank too much, chased money, anything to give me a temporary pleasure, right? Like, okay, I must, if, and society teaches this too, which is so strange. So you can't blame us for this, okay? It's because it's what we know, right? We only know what we know, but it's, society has, and our education system has said, if then, well, if only I had the right girl, if only I had the right amount of money, if only I had the big, the right house, if only I had the right car, if only, then I'd be happy, right? And so we go out in society, and now we're thrust into, well, we've been stripped mission, purpose, identity, because we're out of the military now, right? We don't have that. So everything that we knew to be true about us is gone. So your friends, right, when you leave the gate, when you go outside the wire, and suddenly you're on the other side, and you're looking back, and you're like, wait a second, my rank doesn't matter, what I did doesn't matter. I don't even know who I am, right? Nobody's saluting me. I'm not giving orders. I'm not having to take orders. Now I'm having to figure out, I don't even know how to get a dentist, right? All this stuff, right? You start to go, wait. So then you're like, okay, well, if I just move to the right neighborhood, I'll be happy. If I just have the pool in the backyard, I'll be happy. Mm-hmm. And then you get that stuff, and suddenly you're like, why am I not happy? because we have subscribed to the if then. If only I accomplish X, then I'll be happy. It's not true. What happens is when we go deep into the mission, the purpose, the identity, and that's real work. Like that's hard work, Richard. You know what I'm saying? Like that is so hard when you go, okay, what does it mean to be me? My family and I created a family mission statement. We did this years ago. After I stopped speed dating through jobs and got a great mentor in my life that turned my life around, we came up with a family mission statement. What does it mean to be a Schindler? And we raised our daughters that way, right? And so to this day,
yesterday, I had a gentleman on. You might have heard of him. His name is his name is David, and they made the movie Jerry Maguire after him, David Meltzer.
Okay.
He got it. He had everything. He was at the top of the game. He had over $100 million. And he lost it all. But then he came back, and now he has a purpose to change 1 billion lives. But he said, I had to go back down to zero and build myself back up to find out who I really am. Because when I was in the military, I was Sergeant Kaufman. But when they said, you're no longer in the military, well, who am I? Who's Richard?
That's right.
And it scared the hell out of me. And that's why I attempted suicide. Thank God it didn't happen. But I had to reimagine and reinvent myself. So, and I think sometimes that's the hard, we may be hardcore, but asking questions like, who am I really, is a lot more scarier than going to a battle. You know what I mean?
It is. I mean, think about it. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, who do you see? Right? Who do you see? I mean, that's a big piece of what I had to face. Like I was chasing my identity when I was running after those 14 jobs. Yeah. That's what I was doing.
And I love their thing, and I don't know who said it, but he said, you are who you are when you're alone. That's
100%.
That's the real you. And sometimes it's scary to have to figure out, all right, I don't want to be that guy anymore. I have to change. So but before we get there, because I know that's what I really want to harp on, I want to thank our sponsors. Without you guys, I wouldn't be where I am. Operation Veteran Freedom. They're a company that actually helps veterans start companies, especially in the digital world. When I first started with them, I was collecting disability. Now I'm actually have 4 or 5 different streams of income, and our podcast is top 1% in the world. So if you guys are veterans, you want to start a company, check out OVF. It's free, and they're on Facebook, so check them out. And also, guys, we just came out with this brand new cup holder. If you love your cold stuff cold and your hot stuff hot, this stuff will actually keep your coffee hot for 48 hours or your drinks cold for 48 hours. And all the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with homelessness and PTSD. So if you're interested in that, just type thermos in the comments. So Mike, talk to us about, so here you are, job surfing, 14 jobs.
Yeah.
What was your literal come to Jesus moment?
Well, my come to Jesus moment, it was my great friend Buzz. Honestly, I'm struggling. And he says, there's a guy I want you to meet. And I'm like, okay, great. And he's like, he flew A6s, and, I'm not going to tell you, about his successes, but, I want you to meet him. So I'm in the Seattle area, and Buzz is like, how much money you got? And I had this thing with 14s, I think, Richard, because I had like $14 in my pocket, right? And I'm used to making a lot of money, but the last job I'd left this corporate career job at making $15,000 a month in 2011. So it wasn't that I was broke. It's just that I was struggling. I was miserable. I mean, so I left it, right? And, but my world was collapsing on top of me. And he's like, you got to meet this guy. And so I'm like, okay, great. I got $14 in my pocket. That's it. And he said, well, great. I got 20, so I'll pay for parking in Seattle. So we stop at this hamburger joint called Dick's, which is famous in the Seattle market. And we stop, and Buzz is a pretty big guy. He's like 6'2", 6'3", and he orders like what I think is everything on the menu at that point. And I get to the window, and I'm like, man, I'll just take a dry cheeseburger and a glass of water. The bill comes to $17. Remember, I got $14 in my pocket. And I look at a girl who's a college student, and here I am, this accomplished guy. I'd already written one of my books. I, started this organization. I was, on stages, but I was so unhappy. And now I'm humbled because I'm thinking, I gotta give these cheeseburgers back. And I look at the guy and I'm like, listen, you got to take some stuff back. Richard, she looked at me and she said, I got you. And I'm like, excuse me? She goes, it's okay. Don't worry about it. I got you covered. And swear to God, like I tear up. It's over $3 that I'm tearing up, right? But I look at Buzz and I'm like, I can't even believe that happened. He goes, don't ever forget to count your blessings. That's favor. We get in the car and I meet this guy, Jim. Jim changed my life. He teaches me something called the rule of 5. And the rule of 5 transformed my life. It was, he sat down, he said, hey, I was working on this business investment. And he said, let me give you 5 reasons why I think we should work together. Now, this is the guy with all the money. Okay, Jim had accomplished some pretty amazing things outside of flying A6s in the business world. And he said, let me tell you why I think we should work together. So imagine that, Richard. You're sitting with an investor. The investor looks at you and says, let me tell you why I think we should work together. I'm pretty excited, right? And I'm like, dude, I'm in. And he said, let me tell you 5 reasons why you might not want to work with me. And it was that second part that changed my life, transformed our relationship. We're dear friends to this day. I count him as one of my best friends to this day. That $14, eventually we raised over $2 million from that $14, kicked off a company that started that technology was embedded in some other technology. But at that moment, I knew exactly what I wanted to do in my life. And it came out of a radio interview that I did about that same time, where the gal, because of the stuff that we were doing in the veteran space, she said, well, it sounds like you want to make money off the backs of veterans. And I'm like, well, that's interesting since I am one. And
well, I want to go back because, I lost my vision 2 years ago and now I'm getting it back a little bit, but my hearing got so much better. And I actually get to hang on every word that my guests talk about. I want to know what those 5 things were. What were the 5 things that he said that you will not want to work with him?
Well, I'm not going to divulge his 5 things.
Okay.
But what I will say is those 5 reasons made me stop to consider my values, what I believed were true for me and how we would align together based on our differences. And the 5 things, and I'll tell you that today, and I use this when I'm working with guys that are transitioning out, and I use this with every project that I ever take on or any team that I ever build, is when you look at things, you need to look at life through 2 different lenses. One is, where am I going to add value? Where are the 5 areas I'm going to add value to this project? Okay. And when you get done doing that, you look at it and you go, does that excite me? Right? Because as veterans, you and I both know, Richard, there's probably nothing we can't do. And that's the hiccup I got involved in when I was chasing jobs, because people are like, oh my God, you'd be amazing at this. And I just wanted their accolades. I wanted their improvement. I wanted, I need that, right? I'm going to be good at this. Great. I'll do it. So I wanted to prove myself. And then 3 months into it, I'd be like, oh my gosh, how long do I have to do this? Right. So it's not that you can't do it, but you have to understand clearly what problem are you solving? Where are the 5 areas that you're going to add value? Right. But then you need to back up. And after you get excited about that project, and after the other person gets excited about that project, you need to go, wait a second, what are the 5 reasons I need to run like hell from this? Because that's essentially what Jim gave me. Was, let me tell you the 5 reasons why you don't want to do business with me, which are the 5 reasons you should probably run like hell.
Well, my uncle was a Korean War veteran, and he had a favorite saying that says, everybody has to pay the price.
Yeah.
And what you do, like for me, podcasting, I think I'm almost 500 episodes in, but the average podcast doesn't last past 13 episodes.
Yeah.
You don't realize you have to put in the work.
That's
You got
right.
to put in hours. You got to build relationships. You got to get good in graphics and all this stuff. But like you said, there's 5 reasons why I should be a podcaster, but there was more than 5 why I should have just ran like hell 3 years ago. But thank God I didn't,
Well, and that's just it, though. When you get done with those 5 that you should run like hell, and you go, wait a second, but can I live with those? Or can I negotiate those? Right? Can I take that negative and can I turn it into a positive? Can I take that and make it a positive? If the answer is yes, then you should probably move forward with it, right? I think too many people will look at one negative in their life and they go, well, maybe I shouldn't do it because of the risk. And I believe that God put you on this earth to do amazing things, and you're going to have to live on the edge of your comfort zone if you want to make impact. Most people want to make impact, like you state, Richard, but they're not willing to do the work to do it. But that's scary. I know it's scary, but it's only scary until you start doing it.
But I also think there should be non-negotiables.
100%.
For me and anybody that knows me, it's God first, family, business.
Yeah.
And everything else fourths, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are non-negotiables. So I think, like you said, some things aren't negotiable, but some things are not negotiable. So, I love what you said about that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But that's the reason you need to do the bottom 5, though, right? Is when you get to that bottom 5 and you go, okay, the reasons I should run like hell. Like if anything violates my values, it's a hard no. Right? But you have to do the exercise of understanding why you should run first. Most people don't. They go, oh, I'll go ahead and overlook the culture, or they kind of slide the rules a little bit. I can live with that. Yeah, can you live with that though? Right? The whole goal is to get up in the morning and be excited. Remember that stat I gave you at the beginning where 50% of the people are somewhat satisfied in the workplace, 30% are actively, sabotaging their workplace. A lot of people, the great resignation. The reason that's happening is because people are like, wait a second, what I'm doing is not measuring up to who I am, who I want to be, or where I want to be at. So that's why they're leaving, right? Because they've done things that have maybe go against their values, or maybe go against their family, or maybe go against their God, right? So if you want to change a nation, if we want to change a nation, you've got to be clear on mission, purpose, identity. When you have your purpose clearly aligned, and you understand what your identity is, who you are, right? Then it's really easy to identify the projects that you want to go after. And then your mission can change, because your mission could be different projects that you take on all day long, as long as it feeds your purpose and as long as it feeds your identity.
Something that one of my friends, Gary Vaynerchuk, talks about is, a lot of people get into businesses to make money, to buy things, to impress people that they don't even like.
That's right.
And they get into this whole, now with the whole social media, everybody's got a Lambo and everybody lives in a mansion, but after from COVID, it made a lot of people got found out because they weren't just being real. So talk about that, having a purpose. And it's not being just money driven, because, like Gary says, your legacy is more valuable than your currency.
Yeah.
For me, I'm all about, building a legacy instead of worrying about, me taking pictures driving a Beamer or whatever. You know what I mean? So talk about having a purpose that sometimes it's not only about the money.
Well, purpose and let's be clear on that. Purpose. When people say, well, money's my purpose, that's not your purpose. Money's a tool, right? So money's just a tool. Money, purpose is, what is your purpose? Now, our purpose is to add value to people's lives.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my purpose, right? Before it was to save the world from bad people. Now it's to add value to people's lives, right? That's my purpose. That's why God put me here. How do I add value, right? How do I encourage and uplift others so that they can accomplish the dreams that they have boiling and burning on the inside of them? Because when they get that accomplished, they'll make impact in areas that I never will, right? So people don't confuse. It's important that people understand that money is not a purpose. Money is a tool, right? A purpose is something bigger than you. A purpose is like, wow, you know what? My purpose is to do X. My purpose is to solve X. My purpose is to add X. That's important. Go back to that radio interview, and when that gal said, how much money do you want to make? This is where clarity of purpose came into mind for me, Richard. So here I am on this interview, and the gal says, well, how much money do you want to make? And that it truly had to be a Holy Spirit moment for me, because I'd never thought about how much money I wanted to make. But I just answered off the cuff. I said $100 million. And we're on a live radio show, and she's like, $100 million? And I said, yeah, $100 million, $1 for every life I impact. And at that moment, that's when it became clear why I'm here, right? It wasn't the money for me. It was the impact. To your point, leaving legacy and currency. Let's talk about that. Currency isn't just money. Currency is relationships. And it's going to be even more important in the 21st century, is the relationships and the people that you surround yourself with. That is going to be your greatest currency over money, right? Is, do we have each other's back? So when you think about those of us who have served, the things that we can do in community, there is no greater currency than being able to pick up the phone when you're in a dark moment and saying, Richard, I need help. You could have all the money in the world, and if you don't have somebody you can turn to in your time of need, you're broke, right? Your greatest currency in life is relationships. And if you want to build currency, build that currency over money, because relationships will save you in the end.
And for me, I believe that my network is my net worth.
It is 100%.
For me,
yeah.
It's funny because my wife had a cooking question the other day about something, and I was like, all right, hold on. And I called up my friend Simon Majumdar from he's the Iron Chef. And he answered her question. But it's nice to reach out and say, Simon, my wife has a question. But it's because of those relationships.
That's right.
I'm building, for me, I'm about, like me and you are just starting our relationship. And I believe in building generational relationships. So I believe that, it's not about what you can get. It's not about what I can get. It's about how we can serve others and get together and serve mankind together.
That's it. Well, you're subscribing to the same philosophy, and I think that's why we'll get along swimmingly, right? Is because we believe in one team, one fight.
Yeah.
And we can think differently on different subjects. That doesn't matter. I think people get tripped over that. Well, you don't think exactly like I do. Well, who cares? Yeah. I mean, I'm not looking for a clone. It's really how do we make the world a better place? Like, I've got 2 daughters, and I want to leave this world better for them, which means that we've got a whole lot of work to do, because I think it's getting worse as opposed to better. But
okay, so I have a question now. You guys made a documentary.
Yeah.
And you've had so many people from different disciplines together. And of course, we're military guys, we bag on the Navy, we bag on the Army, like we can pick on each other, but don't let a million pick on us, because then
that's right.
So what was it like to being around all those different mindsets and disciplines at one time?
It was pretty crazy. I mean, I knew really nothing about the film industry at all, right? I kind of got dragged into it. And we shot it right in the middle of COVID, right? So the whole world's shutting down, and I'm on airplanes with a DP, flying to different places like to Boston and Carlsbad and all these other places to do these interviews. And, we're having to direct remote, using Zoom, which hadn't been done. I had no experience in that whatsoever. Writing the script, trying to get people to really glean the information that they have, right? It was like a crash course in a PhD level course, to be honest with you. And I think what I learned most out of that now the film, got picked up by Gravitas, and it's streaming across Amazon and Apple TV and a number of different things. But what I learned from that is when you move off of performance, like I'm only valuable if I achieve X, right? When you move off of that and go, wait a second, I'm gaining value and adding value every day because I'm committed to growth. That's what I learned from that. The other piece that I learned was, hey, it's important to be standing on the edge of your comfort zone. Don't get too comfortable. Because if I'm in my comfort zone, that means I'm probably not impacting lives the way I should be. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. It should be a little uncomfortable. If you think about how this country was founded, Richard, they were uncomfortable every day, right? They just get up on their horse and go, hey, I'm heading west. Really? Do you know what it looks like? I have no idea. Right? Now today, we want to know what does the environment look like? What's my plan for the next 3 months? General Casey said it so well. He said, man, there's 2 types of plans. You Army guys are much better at this than us Navy guys. There's 2 types of plans, right? Plans that might work and plans that don't work, right?
Yeah.
And once you subscribe to that, then you can stop saying, well, that wasn't part of the plan. Probably not. Probably wasn't. So you better adapt.
Yeah. Well, then there's the Mike Tyson theory where, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
That's right. It's so true, right? Yeah. So, but if you have foresight, right, then you understand that you'll probably get punched in the mouth. So what's your plan after you get punched in the mouth?
Yeah.
Right? So that's the piece of the movie that we put together too, was people understanding that you've really got to develop this idea to see into the future. Doesn't mean you can predict the future. You just have to do some scenario planning like we used to do in the military, plan for the unexpected, right? Well, what's the scenario that could possibly happen? I could possibly get punched in the mouth. Okay, so if I get punched in the mouth, what am I going to do about that? Right? So we spend more time planning 2-week vacations than we do thinking through how we want to strengthen our relationships, how we want to feed in and breathe into our kids, how we want to breathe into the people that we're around, right? We don't spend enough time thinking through that. That's the mission, purpose, identity piece. When you get there, you elevate from, being a plebe or being you could have the greatest title in the world, but if you can't answer this question, who are you? You're still just getting started.
And one thing I had, me and my wife, we had the privilege of having dinner with some of the Navy SEALs that took down bin Laden.
Yeah.
And I had to ask him, I'm like, so why do you guys, what makes you guys Navy SEAL? What makes you guys teams? He says, number one, we know what each other's thinking.
Yeah.
And number 2 is we have a plan for the plan after the plan that failed. He said, we plan it all the way down to the nth degree. And I think that's what makes operators different than every other people, because they're very well planned. But now I have a question about plans. I talked to a gentleman the other day on the show, and it was Mr. David Meltzer, and he says, I block out time each day for my wife, my kids, for my mom.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we get so, as entrepreneurs, we block everything out, business, meetings, but we don't block out time for our family, and they just get what's left instead of getting what's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the core. I believe that the strength of this country is built on family. So your friend is right. I believe that 100%. Most people are not disciplined. They look at discipline in the wrong way. Your friend is disciplined in the sense that he clearly understands that there is freedom in discipline, right? I think Jocko says that there's freedom in discipline, and there truly is freedom in discipline. If you look at my regiment, people will say, well, that's, you've got a routine. Well, my routine is meant to go ahead and frame my day. So I get up, almost every morning at 5:50 in the morning. I drink my, 16 ounces of water. I meditate and pray for 25 minutes in the morning. And then I exercise for about 25, 30 minutes in the morning. And then I'm taking my daughter to school, right? And then I'm coming back and, my wife and I are having a conversation. I'm getting ready for the day. And I really don't touch a piece of work until about 8 a.m. in the morning, right? And then to your point, I time block. I usually spend an hour taking a walk with my wife in the afternoon, right? I'm not as disciplined as I should be in that I don't always cut things off at 5 p.m. Sometimes we'll go a little late, and sometimes there will be events, and sometimes there will be things that happen, right, that kind of mess up that plan. But your friend is right. You've got to put the important things first, and the important things truly 100% are family. I believe God and family. You get those two things right, there's nothing you can't do.
There's a book that really impacted my life last year, a book by Mr. James Clear. The book's called Atomic Habits.
Yeah.
And 40% of what our life is just habits.
That's right.
We get up at the same time, we make the same coffee, we do the same things out of habit. So even if we just change 1% a day, in a whole year, we're a totally different person.
Yeah.
And because we're making that constant decision to change that one thing every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, change the bad habits, right? Build on the good habits. I mean, that's the key is, build on your strengths. John Maxwell said it beautifully years ago. I was in a training with him and he said it beautifully. He said, a lot of people want to work on their weaknesses. So if you're a 2 in an area and you really work all year on your weakness, right, and you get that 2 up to a 4, okay, that's good, right? That's not bad. But what if you're an 8 in something and you work all year and you get that 8 up to a 10? Where are you going to make the greater impact, right? And so that's the same with our habits. Is people say, well, I need to change my habit. Well, change it if it's a bad habit, for sure, right? And how do you do that? You count backwards, right? You count backwards. So what do I mean by that? People are like, well, I can't get up in the morning. I just hit the snooze button all the time. I'm like, okay, great. Well, just try this thing. So when you're in bed and that alarm goes off, count backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm out of bed, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, right? I mean, when Mel Robbins talks about this is her thing. She talks about being able to count backwards. We do it, the teams do it. We do it in the military, right? You move off the X, you count backwards. You don't ever say, okay, I'm going to give myself 10 seconds and count up. Why? Because you always know you have 11 seconds, right? But if you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, I got nowhere to go. Now I've just triggered something in mind to go, okay, well, now I need to go. I need to move, right? So there's little practical things you can implement in your life that will go ahead and help you change habits, but you got to be disciplined to do them, right? And it can't be, I'm going to hit the snooze and I'll start tomorrow. That is not discipline.
You got to put in the reps, and like he said, you have to realize what kind of person you are. You have to picture yourself, are you a Ferrari, or are you, for me, like a Dodge Ram guy? If you're a Dodge Ram guy, you're great on the outdoors, but you suck on an oval track. So, but if you're a Ferrari, you're going to do great on the oval track. But when you try to put 5 kids in a Ferrari, it's not going to work. Sometimes you have to realize, like Gary Vee says, and I don't like to curse on this show, but he says, F what you're not good at and triple down on what you are good at.
100%. Yeah.
So now talk to us the last couple of minutes. Tell us what you're up to, what you got going on, and how we can support your mission.
Yeah. Well, so, our primary focus with Operation Military Family, and if people can find Operation Military Family, you can just Google Operation Military Family there, is we're all about helping people discover their post-service identity. What does it mean to be you when that uniform comes off? And I don't care if you've been out 10 years and you're still struggling with that, we'll figure out a way to help you. And we're really good at it. The film, it's VUCA, The Secret to Living in the 21st Century, which features 17 of some of America's greatest thought leaders, military leaders, neuroscience experts in the country. That film came out in March of 2022, and it is growing, starting to get an international audience, which is crazy. And our goal is really helping people understand the principles of what it takes to live in this 21st century. What are the key elements? There's really 6 key steps that you need to master in order to really understand how to see opportunity. Stop getting distracted by the negative stuff. Start leaning into the things you can control, like vision and understanding and clarity and adaptability. You can own that piece of your life. And when you own that piece of your life, the opportunities are amazing. So those are the two primary things that we're working on right now, is really helping people understand that, who they are after they get out, right? And, understanding what it's going to take to navigate the uncertainty so that you can honestly achieve the impossible. And it's not a cute saying. The impossible is whatever barrier you've put in your mind that you think you can't do.
I love it. Yep. So now, obviously, you said you loved the first Top Gun.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the second Top Gun.
Yeah, the second Top Gun, I was selected as the Top Gun super fan, which is crazy, by USAA and We Are the Mighty. They flew me out to New York. I was part of the red carpet event out in New York on the Intrepid. And I sat in a theater before it came out nationwide with 250 other uniformed service members and their families. And that movie, I don't want to influence anybody, but I think it's really clear. The younger generation thought it was a far better movie than the first one. I thought that was a little sacrilegious, only because the first one is the one that, changed my life. The movie's phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So I was honored to be featured in this piece. It's a 2-minute piece, with USAA and We Are the Mighty as part of this whole promoting the second movie, Top Gun Maverick. If you pay attention, you'll understand that mission, purpose, identity are very clear in this movie. And when you master it, you will change the world. And I think that's the important thing that people need to understand, that your viewers on the show. I want them to understand that when you nail that, who I am, why I'm here, and what I'm supposed to be doing, when you nail that, and that might take getting a mentor in your life. And I don't care if it's us. I don't care if it's Veteran-Keynote. I don't care if it's, pick it. Get somebody who has something that you want, whether it's a marriage that you admire, whether it's a business that you admire, whether it's a relationship with God that you admire. If that's what you want, find the person in your life that can help you get there.
I love it. So now I just want to say, I want to thank our sponsors. Thank you, OVF. Guys, like I said, check out get your vertical momentum swag. Mike, I just want to say thank you. I'm so appreciative of your friendship, and I know we're going to be doing some great things together in the future.
Absolutely. It's an honor. Thank you for having me.
All right, guys, remember to, when you get home tonight, kiss your kids, call your moms, call your dads. Sometimes they're the only ones that, they're always going to be there for you, and they might not always be there. So just do that. Like Oprah Winfrey says, one of my favorite quotes is, if you want to help yourself, help others. So guys, I love you guys. I'll check you out on Monday. Have an amazing week. And remember, the only way to go is up. Love you guys. Have an amazing weekend. Bye, Mike.
See you.